how often or how available should that leadership mentor be? Like, not for long periods of time necessarily, but how often should that mentor be available, ideally, to help them when they go, well, look, I'm stuck, or I'm struggling.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer, and I feel safe enough to say I don't know.
Yeah.
I need help.
I think that's the biggest thing, Tim, that what you're saying there is they need to know that they have a safe place to say, I'm stuck. I really don't know where to go here. And this needs to be somebody they know that is going to keep, their confidences and allow them to be able to say, I'm failing here. Like, I don't know where to go with this. So I love that you bring that up, because that is number one and so important. And then I think, we have to be respectful of the other person. The other person has their own world, and they have their own job, and they have their own things that are going on. And so for me, I think it's important to set time. And so, setting a time, at least 30 minutes to an hour each week with that person. And maybe you won't need it. Maybe that week you're fine. But it's always set aside. Both of you know it's set aside. And maybe it's reciprocal. Maybe you're actually able to help the other person with something that they're stuck on or need some advice around. And so I think just setting that time, at least, that 1 hour a week, if needed, I think that's really important. Another concept that I really like to use is called roundtable. It's just a leadership roundtable, and it does not include it's all same level leaders, which it has to be. It can't be anybody that's reporting to anybody else. All of that has to be gone, because of what you said. They need to have a safe space that they feel like they can be vulnerable. They can talk about where they're failing. They can talk about where they're struggling, and they know that that's not going to end up on their mid-year or end-of-year performance review. And so having that roundtable, that's all it is set aside for. There's no other agenda. There's nothing that we need to cover for this and we need to go over for this. Nope. This is just for people to bring up the situations that are happening, and then, work through them together, talk through those different situations. Most likely you're having a situation that somebody else is also struggling with. And this is a great time for you, to be able to bring it up and everybody be able to discuss. But it goes back to that, such an important concept of people have to feel safe during that. I am not going to speak if I know that something I say in that meeting is going to show up on my mid-year performance review or my end-of-year performance review. I need to be able to talk these things in a safe way.
I'm a massive proponent of psychological safety. And ironically, though I didn't invent it, I sort of discovered or developed it sort of on my own. Like in my classroom, which is where I get most, like a classroom, you are a leader, whether you like it or not. And it doesn't matter the age of the students, you are a leader. And if you do it badly, it's reflected in your students' performance, and that reflects on you, not them. Definitely. And what I realized, my big mantra was basically, it was all growth mindset. It was like, only trying matters. So I would sometimes tell students things like, is that the best job you're capable of? And not in an accusatory way, just asking them. And almost with that exception, they're going, no. It's like, okay, so I want to see you put a little more into it than that.
Yeah.
I made damn sure that they understood. They were safe to say, I don't know. I think that. I'm confident that. Like, give them degrees of certainty, because I'm teaching language, but show them that I don't know is not only a desirable answer, but I oftentimes would start the adult teaching classes with that. I would ask them a question I assume nobody knows. Is like, why is the sky blue? Assuming that nobody in the class is as much of a physics and science geek as me to know the answer. And if they do, I'll say, how does myelination affect the speed of networks in your brain? And by which mechanism can you best increase the rate or occurrence of myelination? And I want them to say, what it might what literally engineering something they don't know. But I only and usually always do this after saying, okay, ask me any Japanese you want, to prove how incompetent I am at something and how fearless I am to say, I don't know. I don't even know what you said. So showing them that I am human and also am, I like the way Gary Vee put it, everybody sucks at something.
Yeah. I love that.
So I want to ask you more question about my extension question, and that is, do you think, and I want you to disagree with me if you do, I want you to be completely honest here, having the ability for them to reach out anytime, like not 7/24, but at work, the moment it happens that they're struggling, that if the person is at all available to take 30 seconds of their time, do you think that would be sort of the ideal paradigm? And if you don't agree, please tell me.
Yeah. I do think it would be the ideal paradigm. I don't know that it's realistic. Just, I know how busy people get. We get so crazy busy, and, these back-to-back meetings and from one thing to the next. And so I think that that's the piece that is really tough with that, is how realistic is it? The nice thing about it, though, is that we do have so many ways of, connecting with each other. We have so much different technology that we could reach out. And in the workplace, now that you've got a chat system, whether it's through Teams or GChat or Skype or, whatever it is that you're using, it is easy to send somebody a message. And I know for me, I always put it out to my employees that it's like, message me through here. Even if you see that I'm in a meeting, it could be the possibility that meeting, I don't have to be 100% plugged in and I can answer you. If I don't answer you, then that I'm not able, I am plugged into this meeting and I need to be present. But there are those meetings, unfortunately, that you're just kind of one foot in. And so I'm always happy to answer. But, I think you just have to recognize people's availability, and it's just not there, unfortunately. And so realistically, I love that idea. Excuse me, theoretically, I love that idea. I just don't know that it's realistic.
Okay, thank you. While you were saying that, I was thinking about something that James Surowiecki calls idea markets. He's the guy who did a book that's quite famous called The Wisdom of Crowds. So I was thinking, like, sort of on call if you're available, great. If you're not, you're not. And that's a more realistic implementation. But added to that, if it was like, well, you have your one-to-one mentor, but then you can post to the group of either co-students or a group of mentors and say, hey, does anybody have any idea? Because the main thing I think of from the neuroscience perspective is the reason that you pairing feedback or learning as closely within fractions of seconds to the behavior you just engaged in works is because in most cases in evolutionary history, if we did something dumb, we just died. So our brain is exceptionally good as long as the pairing is as close and immediate to the behavior or the challenge we're facing as possible, exponentially increases the rate of learning. And that's why, when you stick your hand on the element or on the fire, it doesn't take 5 minutes to get the message because our ancestors would have been dead long before it was of use. So extending that to learning, if somebody can get an answer within seconds for that question when it's salient and visceral to them, their rate of learning would be.
That makes total sense.
I've only got 2 more questions. I really appreciate your incredible answers. And I know you're not faking it because your answers are amazing, that you are actually a leader. So how do you envision, let's see this. I'm just going to read it as is. I'm not sure I love the wording, but how do you envision a course helping you address specific leadership challenges within your organization? Now, if you've already answered this, and I think you have, just say asked and answered.
Yeah. I would go back to that roundtable. To me, that like providing a roundtable for leaders to be able to come in without their, leaders in there, again, a safe space where they're able to collaborate and talk and speak freely and, talk through these things. I think that's where I would really direct it towards is having something like that where they can discuss and have that discussion back and forth. And even if they're not fully comfortable speaking up, there is going to be somebody within that session who is going to bring up something similar to what you're experiencing. And for you to be able to talk that back and forth, I think it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I love that.
All about bringing people together to collaborate. I think it makes a huge difference when you bring human beings together to talk about things.
Well, not only under the right conditions rather than the wrong conditions are groups smarter. In fact, there was research that showed that getting a group of specialists, so they got the smartest people in a large sample who were they were literally the best people out of that sample at math. So they were the math gods of the group, and they put them in a group, and then they randomly assigned everybody else. So all the other groups were just not the top 10 or not the top group. And by random assignment, you get diversity. And what they found is diversity overwhelms and outperforms singular expertise in math questions. So what they're the geniuses at, 90% of the time, diversity outperforms expertise because of the lack of diversity in that superpowered math geek group, where you might have a much narrower swath of experience because it isn't like a kindergarten teacher and a scientist. It's a bunch of physics or math geeks who that's all they do. And like I said, they get their butts handed to them 90% of the time from these groups who are purely nothing but diverse. So
yeah, that's interesting.
I couldn't agree more.